Hi Year 10, this is our third and final distance learning lesson for this week. It's a triple science lesson and we're looking at pyramids of biomass. Okay, we're going straight into the title. What does a pyramid of biomass represent? Okay, don't forget to write today's date. What does a pyramid of biomass represent? Now, there is such a thing as a pyramid of numbers, and they will never ask you to draw a pyramid of numbers, but they will ask you to draw a pyramid of biomass. Sometimes to scale, as we're going to do today, sometimes just a rough sketch, okay? Now, pyramids of biomass represent the amount of biological mass consumed within a food chain. Okay, and we're going to look at some examples of those. If it was a pyramid of numbers, it's looking at the number of individuals involved in the food chain, and that can be where it goes a bit kind of off really, because if you imagine you had one oak tree, okay, so you had one thing as the kind of producer at the beginning, and then you had say 20 robins living in that tree, and then you had something else that's going to eat the robins living in that tree, then you don't really get a pyramid shape. But with a pyramid of biomass, it's always a pyramid shape. Now, that won't become clear yet, but hopefully as we go through the lesson, it will become clear. Okay, so this is an example of a pyramid of biomass, and we can see it follows the route of a food chain, starting with plankton, the plankton being eaten by the zooplankton, zooplankton being eaten by the small fish, large fish eating the small fish, and the grebe, which is a bird, eating the large fish, okay? And we can see it's always a pyramid shape. If it was a pyramid of biomass, it's always a pyramid shape. If it was a pyramid of numbers, you can get some really obscure shapes. So pyramid of biomass, the biological matter involved in the food chain, is a really good way of showing the transfer of energy through a food chain. So we've got a definition here. The mass of living material in an organism is called biomass. The amount of biomass at each stage in a food chain is less than it was in the previous stage. We'll come back to that. The biomass at each stage can be drawn to scale and shown as a pyramid of biomass. Now, you can write maybe a one-sentence definition, or you can just write that writing there. You don't need to draw the pyramid of biomass because we're going to have a go at creating one ourselves. Okay. If you need to pause, pause now. Okay, so this is the pyramid that we're going to have a go at drawing. Now, I've done this already to give you an idea of how it's supposed to look. So what we're going to do is take some, ideally graph paper. To be honest, it doesn't need to be graph paper. It could be lined paper. It could be, whatever you can get your hands on. And what I've done is I folded the paper in half, and along the fold of the line, I created a bar chart to scale to represent the data we've got. So I said up here, this was 100,000 grams. And then this one here was only 5,000 grams. And this was my tiny 50 grams. Now I did that on that folded piece of paper, drawing the bar chart along that base fold. And then when I open it up, I've got a scale model of a pyramid of biomass. So I've created my own pyramid of biomass, labelling each of the sections. I couldn't label sheep ticks because it was such a tiny bar there, but you can see I've labelled grass, I've labelled sheep, and that gives us a to scale pyramid of biomass. Okay, so that's just one way of looking at it. We had that bar chart that was folded over, we drew it as a bar chart, and then we've just replicated it on the other side. So you're going to have a go at doing that now. So you may well now need to pause this so that you can have a go at drawing your own. If you need to pause, pause now. Okay, we're going to look at an exam question now. Energy is stored in the materials that make up organisms. These materials are called biomass. So we've got the biomass there for a rose plant being eaten by green fly being eaten by ladybirds, and ladybirds being eaten by blackbirds. It says complete the pyramid of biomass for this food chain. The rose plant has been done for you. You can see that bar at the base of the graph there. You should draw the rest of the pyramid to the same scale. 5 small squares equals 50 grams per metre squared. Okay, so 600, let's look at that middle point there, okay, and it's one big box. If you look 10 little squares, one big box there, that's 100, 200, 300. And then if we go the other way, we've got 100, 200, 300. We may be asked in other questions to put a scale on this. So basically, every small square is worth 50, so 10 squares is worth 100, and that's why we've got that 600 down as that bar on the bottom, okay? So the green fly is only 50, so that's 5 small squares. So we're going to need to do, not over on the side, but in the middle, we're going to need to go from that middle line and the same height, so 5 squares tall. We're going to need to go 2.5 squares over this way and 2.5 squares over this way and label it green fly. Okay. Hopefully you can do the rest, but just if you need any further help. Above that, another 5 small squares high, but this time only one little square wide. We're going to have the 10 ladybird. And then probably just a very thin line on the top, again 5 squares high, which is going to have one single line there for the 1 blackbird. Okay, so hopefully you can get that into your books as an example of how you might be asked to do that in an exam question. If you need extra time, pause now. What proportion of the energy in a rose plant is transferred to the green fly? I'm going to give you a chance to do this. What proportion of the energy from the rose plant gets into the green fly? So we've got the rose plant is 600. That's how much energy it's got. How much? Well, it's how much biomass, but we can relate that to how much energy it's got. Only 50 of it goes into the green fly. Okay, so think about 50 out of 600. Okay, and try and figure that one out. If you need extra time, pause now. And then let's get our green pens ready. Oops, get our green pens ready. So we had all bars drawn correctly, the green fly, the ladybirds and the blackbird. The blackbird needs to be less than 1 square. We did that, I hope. And then we had 50 over 600, so 50 grams per metre squared goes into the green fly. 600 was the original rose plant. And then we can simplify that to 1 over 12. We could put that as a ratio 1 to 12, or we could say 8.3%. So if we multiply that by 100, we get 8.3%. Okay. Right, so we've now got here a picture of a sheep, and we've got the energy arrow going in of the food, and we're just thinking about where is that energy lost. So what does the sheep do that uses up some of the energy that it ingests from its food? Okay, have a think. Have a go at drawing. If you want to draw a picture of a sheep, that's fine. If you don't, also fine. But we're going to see what kind of things might a sheep do that uses up energy. Okay, if you need time, pause now. Okay, so the kind of things that the sheep does, we've got respiration, which is releasing the energy. We've got movement. We've got maintaining body temperature, warm-blooded animal. We've got, those are the key ones. What else could we put on there? We could put, if it was maybe something that does a bit more thinking than a sheep, we could talk about thinking. We could talk about energy used in digestion. Those sorts of things would be fine on that question, okay? If you need more time, pause now. Okay, last slide of the lesson. So here we have our just another basic pyramid of biomass, and we can see we've got these yellow regions where energy is lost. So if we're representing the amount of energy at each stage of each trophic level, that's what we call these, then we can see that the narrower those bars become, the more energy is lost, the less energy gets into it. So all of that grass that we had here, okay, loads of energy, not much of that energy made it into the sheep, okay, and we've got to think about why that is, okay. And so the reason that there's lots of energy lost through each trophic level is that not all of the organism is eaten. So if it's the grass, it's not the roots aren't eaten, and there's energy trapped in there. Some energy is lost in the feces, so when the rabbit and the fox lose energy in that way, in the feces. And also, as we just said on the sheep picture on the previous slide, some energy is used by the organism. Okay, so that's our kind of summary of pyramids of biomass. We'll always be looking at pyramids of biomass, not pyramids of number, although they do exist as well. We want those bars to stay as wide as possible at the top to show efficient energy transfer. We should now be able to draw a pyramid of biomass to scale and label it up, and we now should also know how energy is lost, okay, because not all of the organism is eaten, some energy is lost in the feces and some energy is used by the organism, and we need to write down those final notes from the bottom of this slide, please. Okay, so that's the end of our biology lessons for this week. Enjoy your day. Thank you.